The first few days of October have not disappointed. Crypto is rallying, Bitcoin is near all-time highs, altcoins are on the verge of breaking some massive resistance. We're going to take a look at that, as well as specific coins I'm currently looking at. So if you are new here and you're excited with what's happening right now, rest assured that this is only going to continue, and I'm going to show you why in today's video. So if you are new here, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and let's talk crypto. So Bitcoin over the last 3 days has decided to go parabolic. We can see that from the start of October, where it was around 114,000, it has gone all the way up to roughly 123,800 just over the day as I'm recording this. We basically almost went to the all-time high here of roughly 124,500. So this is going to be your next level of resistance. We were basically in, this kind of channel for the better part of the last 2 months. And over the last, 4 or 5 days, we've seen a massive uptrend on Bitcoin. The whole sentiment has shifted yet again. We are starting Q4. There's a lot of hype in the space, and Bitcoin has responded very well. Now, if we take a look at altcoins, it is very interesting where we are right now, and I'm going to show you this total 3 altcoins market cap. So this chart here shows you what's happening with altcoins. And if I zoom out, let's go to a full month chart. What do we see? We see that altcoins are essentially right at all-time highs, right around $1.16 to $1.17 trillion in market cap. These are all of your altcoins, excluding Bitcoin, excluding Ethereum. And as we can see in 2021, this topped out right around 1.13 trillion. If we go to a weekly chart, you're going to see that time and time again, back in December of 2024, we, had resistance on that same level. Yet again, in January of 2025, and just over the last few weeks, we've had more resistance on these levels. So altcoins are on the verge of breaking out in terms of total 3. We've seen Bitcoin reach new all-time highs. It's almost doing another all-time high. Ethereum is back around 4,500. I do see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins continuing up. And after that, there's going to be a major rotation from Bitcoin to Ethereum and finally to some large, mid, and small cap cryptos. Now, what I mean by this is the following. If you look at this metric alone, you're excited right now. Everything's going up. Bitcoin is up. Altcoins are up. But if you look at where we are for Bitcoin dominance, how much does Bitcoin represent of the entire total crypto market cap? Well, we're right around 59%. And if I go to a weekly chart, you're going to see it even better. We topped out, back in June around 66%. We have only been falling since that time, but we've only fallen a certain amount, and altcoins are essentially right at their all-time highs in terms of total altcoin market cap. Of course, individual altcoins is very different. We're going to take a look at a few in a minute here. But Bitcoin dominance has essentially fallen roughly 10-11%. And this is what we've had in altcoins. We are right around all-time highs. So as we all know, the path to Altseason starts with Bitcoin, goes to Ethereum. We've seen a rebound in Bitcoin. We've also seen a rebound in Ethereum, and that is continuing. And slowly but surely, some of that liquidity is going to move into large caps, into mid caps, and into small caps. But before that happens, I do think we're going to see a new all-time high on Bitcoin. And I also think we're going to see a new all-time high in Ethereum. And then you're going to see all of that liquidity, or most of that liquidity, trickle down into some of those altcoins. But also, as we know, why Bitcoin dominance is so important is because of the Bitcoin dominance cycle. Right now, we've seen Bitcoin dominance go down, roughly speaking, 10% in the matter of the last 2 to 3 months. And we've seen what that has had in terms of an impact on altcoins in a global general sense of things. But what we have not yet seen is a massive collapse in Bitcoin dominance. And in my opinion, that is what we are going to see next in the next few months, whether or not Bitcoin hits a new all-time high in Q4, and then slowly but surely liquidity transfers over to Ethereum, then altcoins, and Bitcoin dominance starts falling later in Q4. That is my likely scenario. And then we're going to really see altcoin prices move and move very fast, because if you look at what happens when Bitcoin dominance goes down and Bitcoin prices go up, it means that your altcoins are absolutely going bonkers. Now, there is another alternative to this, and this may be what happens as well, is that if Bitcoin dominance goes down, but the price of Bitcoin stays lateral or stays within a tight range, it could be anywhere from a range of $2,000 to $5,000, even more in some cases, that is also going to make your altcoins go up, because it means that altcoins are gaining dominance over Bitcoin. And if you're telling me that all of this is nonsense and you don't believe in Bitcoin dominance, well, let me show you this chart here. This chart is going to show you just what happens in previous cycles. If we take a look at, once again, Bitcoin dominance, let me put you on a monthly chart. You're going to see that in the last 2 cycles, we have massive drops of Bitcoin dominance. In 2017, we have this massive move, which essentially represents altcoin season. And in 2021, we have this massive move, which represents altcoin season. And what we currently have in 2025 is only this little blurb here. So again, we are still waiting for more continued downside to Bitcoin dominance, likely targeting anywhere from 40% Bitcoin dominance. We are going to see this in one point in time, and that is really going to be the major altcoin season that we've all been waiting for. Let me know down in the comment section below if you are still waiting on altcoin season. Now, something extremely important to understand as an altcoin holder is that not all altcoins are going to do well at the same time, and it's oftentimes that altcoins have a peak of dominance after Bitcoin has already peaked. And that makes sense, because as we go to the liquidity of things, it trickles down from top to bottom. And one chart that really illustrates this is the others dominance. So this is taking your crypto altcoins outside of the top 10, and it's looking at their dominance over time. And if you look at these different cycles, let's go to 2017. We had a peak of all other altcoins dominance in May of 2018, well after Bitcoin had a peak in the later parts of 2017. If you take a look at 2021, the others dominance actually peaked a full year after Bitcoin had peaked. So you have to understand this. And if we take a look at where we are right now, well, others dominance is at roughly 7.8%. And we haven't even seen anything happen to the others dominance, because we're not there just yet. But keep that in mind. And if you look into altcoins itself, you're going to notice that depending on the narratives, there are different times where these actually peak. So it can start with a few narratives, then liquidity moves from that narratives into others. So if you are going to be chasing a narrative after narrative, make sure that you're not doing it with your entire crypto portfolio, because if you do that, you're likely going to get wrecked. It is much better to try and position yourselves across many different narratives, the ones that you're most bullish on, and await for that rotation instead of trying to catch up with the rotation as it happens. But if you obviously want to try and do that, I would recommend, taking a small percentage of your portfolio and leaving it as stable coins so that you can try and play these narratives. But of course, that's not financial advice. Your money, your decisions, and of course, do your own research before you just buy something that's flashy. It is always better, because if things go sideways, you're going to understand what you're invested in rather than just having bought pure hype. So now that we understand this, and with the US government actually shut down since October 1st, we've been talking about that in our private Discord. Last time this happened, the S&P 500 actually went up 10%. That was back in 2018, 2019. So the stock market actually hit a new all-time high. Crypto is going up, and the US government is shut down. Quite ironic ironic, I know, but over the last few days, Trump has said more Trump things, which have obviously fueled more fire into equities. We have here President Trump is considering sending U.S. taxpayers up to $2,000 in stimulus checks using tariff revenue. So we all know back in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a whole lot of money printed, a whole lot of money sent to essentially everyone. That was one of the main things that fueled the fire and the rally that we saw in the stock market as well as crypto. The massive bull market that we had was in part due to the stimulus that the US injected in their own economy. Could we see this yet again with, tariff revenues sponsoring a portion of these stimulus checks? We're just going to have to wait and see, but that is circulating the wire right now. And if we look at what's also happening in the U.S. economy, even though the U.S. government is shut down, we're not going to get any economic data as the government remains shut down. But if you look at the rate cut odds into the end of 2025, well, based on analysts right now, we have 95% chance of another 0.25 cut in the October meeting. So at the end of the month, we have potentially another cut or likely another cut. And in December, again, another cut. So that would be a 0.5 basis point cut for the end of 2025, which is ultimately bullish for assets, bullish for risk on assets, bullish for cryptocurrencies, and of course, bullish for altcoins. And if we correlate that to DeFi Llama as much as we can, looking at the total value locked in decentralized finance right now, it is quite interesting to look at this graph. Let me zoom in on it for you guys. In 2021, we had a TVL of a peak of roughly $178 billion. And that was at the very pico top of the bull market. And right now we are at roughly 167 billion. So about 10 billion shy of where we were in 2021. And as we all know, we typically crush the previous bull market tops as we get in the new bull cycle, and that is something I'm closely monitoring. So keep that on the lookout. But right now, if you look at crypto bubbles, you can see a lot of coins doing very well. It definitely seems like it's a BNB season still. You're seeing BNB hit new all-time highs, which is a large cap. That is one of the first coins that is seeing a whole lot of rotation in terms of liquidity. Going into their coin, we have coins like Cake, one of the top dexes on BNB. You have Aster, the new perpetual dex on BNB. And if we go take a look at coin market cap, you can zoom in here and see that over the last 24 hours, some of the top coins are in fact all on the BNB chain. And to think that BNB is at $1,170 is absolutely insane. I do think that at one point in time, liquidity is going to make its way to other large caps. And those coins are easily spotted if you go onto CoinMarketCap. Go on to the list of coins. You're going to see coins like Solana, like Doge, perhaps Cardano, Hyperlink. You have Chainlink, Avalanche, Sui, XLM, Hedera. Some of the top 20 coins are likely going to see a lot of liquidity in the next few weeks. And that is, where I'm currently looking at, but also looking at some of the medium to low cap coins, because I do think that eventually that liquidity is going to make its way there. And if you are positioned in some of those narratives that are likely going to do well, like artificial intelligence, RWA, stable coins, so on and so forth, you are likely to see that liquidity flow into. So to look at some of those large cap coins and some of their charts, how are they looking? Well, Avalanche right now is sitting at $31, is looking rather interesting. We had, a local top in December of 55. We had another local top around 60 in March. Right now, it's, twice as less as that. I absolutely think AVAX is going back to 100. If you just look at its chart, this is basically an accumulation phase for AVAX right now. I am still very bullish on this L1, even though there are many other L1s out there. AVAX remains one of my top L1s. If you look at Solana, well, it's just done amazingly well in the last little while. from the bear market lows of, $8 all the way to roughly $300 over the last week. It's just been on an uptrend, a low of $100 in April. I do think Solana is going to likely reach, $300 to $400 in this altcoin season. That's my speculation. No, it's not financial advice, but we are climbing nicely on Solana. That resistance level of $250 is key and evident. If there is a breakthrough of that in the next few weeks, that is going to be a lot of price discovery for Solana. So keep that in your back pocket. If we take a look at SUI, for example, another L1, we've had, this chart highlighted for quite some time. We had this range of roughly $3.20 all the way to $3.40 as an interesting area of support. We can see that back from the April lows, we had a pump there, some consolidation, unfortunately breakdown all the way to $2.50. But this $3.30 range has been relatively good support, some resistance just over the last few weeks, but it's broken now back above it, sitting right around $3.60. So SUI is another one I am continuing to look at. Then if we take a look at Chainlink, another large cap coin, you look at, these different patterns that it has every time there is a downward channel. There seems to be, an uptrend right after. As it continues, we're likely going to be seeing something similar to that for Chainlink, one of the best utility coins in the space. If we look at Ondo, for example, we've been consolidating in this, range for the better part of the last few weeks or even months. Right around, that 85 cents is one of those targets that I had for Ondo. And actually one of my buys a few months ago, we bought Ondo right around 85 cents. And right now it's at 95. But as you can see, some of these weekly wicks do go down as low as 85 cents. So definitely another one to keep your eyes on. But if you want to go into even more smaller plays, which I encourage you to look at, you can look at coins like Desync, which is one of Alex Becker's favorite coin. It is at, 12 cents. Just over the last few days, it was at 8 cents. We did talk about that one just a few days ago. You can also look at coins like Render. We know that Render is definitely in the bottom of its range. In the previous top, it did go all the way to $13. Basically, some massive accumulation right now for Render. You can look at another Deepin project that just announced a partnership with a NASDAQ company. They're essentially raising millions of dollars for a treasury in the ATH coin. We can see that, if we go to a daily chart, we're basically back in this range of consolidation around the 5 cents. So that's another one to look at, sitting at a much smaller market cap than Render. But obviously, you can go down a rabbit hole with small cap coins. Just remember that liquidity is going to be last to reach some of those low cap coins. So if, Solana starts pumping, AVAX starts pumping, and your small market cap coins aren't pumping just yet, just understand that it's because liquidity hasn't necessarily reached it just yet. The last one I wanted to talk about very, very quickly, maybe a bit of alpha, is CowSwap. This one here, very interesting. It has been consolidating ever since, the month of, let's say, April. It hasn't really done a whole lot. It's done a 2x, but right now it's sitting at 30 cents. And one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this one, because it did go all the way up to $1.20 in the December hype when everything was doing well. CowSwap is an aggregator. It actually picks the best method of swapping coins for you. And they've just recently announced a very interesting partnership. As we've said, BNB coins are doing very well. And what they just announced a few days ago, which I haven't seen anybody really pick up, is the fact that they're actually bringing gasless trading, better prices, and MEV protection to BNB. So something to consider. Again, it doesn't mean that just because they've released this that it's going to go through the roof, but it is still more of a small to mid cap play. If you look at what we have it in terms of valuation, it is at a $150 million market cap, an FDV of 300 million. And if you were to look at PancakeSwap, just to give you a comparison, PancakeSwap's at $1.25 billion in valuation. So that is, a long ways. It's about a 10x just to reach what PancakeSwap is. Of course, it's not financial advice, just a coin I thought I'd throw in there as BNB coins are very popular right now. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. October is well on its way. October is definitely here. Keep monitoring Bitcoin dominance. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.